Yes, Spurs fans, welcome back to the Irish Hotspur. Jack and Dave here, joined by Billy T, as well as Martin Knightsbridge, who you, of course, might know from the chat and is a lovely member of our community here. We're still in the post-Levy discussion era. We're going to be getting all of our grievances, all of our thoughts, all of our maybe benefit of hindsight type of discussions, now that he is gone, and sort of talk about his legacy, what it means now that he's gone. Will there be a new era at Tottenham Hotspur? Will it all just be the same, just new different faces to be blaming, new different scapegoats this time around? Good to have Dave back with us. It's been maybe a bit of a time where we've had a little bit of opportunities to reflect on this situation, Dave, maybe a bit longer than others. So I look forward to having this conversation with you to see what maybe you have to say, some questions that we done from the fan show last night, and then also some of your own that you have prepared for us. Please, everybody, smash the like button as you hop in, get into the comments. If you want to interrupt the show at any point, you're welcome to support us by throwing in a super chat, and also do consider becoming a member. But we want to make the best use of everyone's time tonight. We're only going to be live for about an hour here or so. We have plenty to discuss about this certain Daniel Levy. So let's get into it. Daniel Levy, of course, has officially left Tottenham Hotspur. Do you think he knew about this departure? Do you think it came as a surprise to him? Because it felt like, from the words of Vinay Venkatesham, Billy, he seemed to say that he had plans of working with Daniel Levy for a long time. So do you think this all came as a big shock to Daniel Levy?
Yeah, I do. I think in some elements anyway, definitely the timing of it, I think, was a shock. I think he's probably, he's a really intelligent guy, Daniel Levy. Say whatever you like about him. He's incredibly intelligent. I'm sure that he saw some of the changes this summer, like the wheels might have been in motion in his head. I might have been thinking, I could be on my way out here, or these, big changes that will come in. But I really don't think he would have expected it, the timing of it, 3 games into the season. I think a big clue and indicator that is that Gary Neville interview coming out at the beginning of the season. I don't think he'd have done that if he'd known he was going like a few weeks later. So I think he might have thought that maybe he's on the way out, or maybe it was a bit under pressure. But I don't think at the timing of it would have been known for sure.
It's actually funny that you mentioned that Gary Neville interview, because until we've been hearing some rumors that maybe this did come as a surprise to Levy, I actually originally thought, I wonder if that was planned by Levy, because maybe he did know that he was going. I texted Dave that maybe that whole interview with Gary Neville was just sort of to glaze himself a little bit, sort of make it, maybe show the legacy, show what he has done for the club, because that's what a lot of their conversation was about. But a lot of the rumors seem to be coming out that it was a surprise to Mr. Levy. So Martin Knightsbridge, just your thoughts on that. Do you think this all came as a surprise to him? And maybe, do you think someone inside the Lewis family has pulled the rug out from underneath him?
Well, I'm doing my short version because I've got a bit of an deeper one. But yeah,
Go into the deeper one.
Go into the deeper one. Right. Deep. With a bit of time gone past now and a few things that have come out, you got your 2 camps, didn't you? And I think I've sort of gone through the middle. I think that over the years, his plan was to build and grow the company, not so much the football, but grow the company. And I think he's been great at that. No one can knock, especially if they're his bosses and they're sitting there and going, well, we've borrowed 80 million quid, we've bought Tottenham, and then now all of a sudden they're in the billions. And I just think over the years, every time they've asked him a question, he just shows them the checks, what we've made, what we've done, and it's all been great. I just think now that Joe Lewis is getting a bit older, I think the kids have come in. I hate calling them kids because they're older than me, but they are his kids, and I think they've come in and they've sort of been around it and seen a few things now. And then he sent in, what's the Charrington? Sent Charrington in, and then they've sent Vinay, and then they've sort of, as long as they're making money, I think it's been all right. Now, I think the family have come in, seen it, and they've got his, he trusts Charrington, and they've got Vinay, and I think they've apparently that Viv went away on the pre-season tour. So they've been up close and watched everything he does, and then they've had the summer transfer window, and I think they've just got to the point. I think they was going to get him out, but I just think at the moment it got to a point where they're like, no, this can't continue. This is madness what he's doing. As I say, you can sell the business side and all this, but if they are bothered about the football, they've come in and seen it now, and they're like, no. And I think he's been pushed at the end. I think there's been a big row somewhere, and it's just come quicker than they was expecting and he was expecting, because Vino had come out and said that I was open to work for him for years. I'm not quite believing it. I think he didn't think it was going to be so short, but I think something's happened at the end and they've just gone, enough's enough. We want to take over. Listen, if they are saying these things and this is what they want to do, I'm all for it, because I say we've got this big shiny new toy and all the training ground, and you're selling it and selling it. But at the end of the day, the paying fans that go week in, week out and spend thousands each year to follow around the country, around Europe, and they're watching 26 losses last year, it ain't good enough. And I'm sorry, we all enjoyed the Europa League win, but we went through 9 months of pain for one day of fun. And I don't think that balances out in a football world. So I think there's been a thing at the end, and they've thrown him out the door, basically.
Well, that was kind of the thick skin, though, that us Spurs fans were building up, to be fair, for that one night of glory. Dave, to you on this.
Well, I feel like an elephant. I've been watching it for years.
Yeah, seriously. Rhino hide. Dave, to you, I mean, someone in the chat yesterday, a member in the chat, seemed to say, oh, it's not that important, it's not that interesting whether Daniel Levy knew about it or not. I mean, am I wrong by asking this question? I do find it kind of interesting if Daniel Levy had any idea or not if this was happening.
Look, I think he had an idea. I think, where we finished last year in terms of the league, I think even the way we squandered the Harry Kane money to a large degree, I think any self-respecting business would be having an inquest in it. I think, look, at the time when Daniel Levy came in, and what he's built the club to, he's built astronomical revenues and everything else, and in terms of on the business side of things, and this is why I'm very sort of hesitant to believe in the Lewis family, because at the end of the day, Daniel Levy still owns part of Phoenix, so through shareholders and all, he can still sort of have some sort of influence. But also, let's not pretend he was the guy paid to be the front of it all. He was getting $3 million a year to be the front of it all. At the end of the day, he was still, I would hazard a guess, operating under the directive of Joe Lewis and, in recent times, the Joe Lewis family. So I'm very hesitant to sort of get on board that, the Lewis family are going to take this on for the greater good. Look, when it comes to Daniel Levy, when he came in here and look at the juggernaut he built this club into, in terms of revenues and all, and when you look at Tottenham Hotspur, he sort of maximized the business side of it. There's no real scope for him to really go and improve on what he's already done. You're talking about F1 tracks, stadium tours that bring in on average, I'd say $5 million a year. I think they're going every 20 minutes. Abseiling, Skywalk, absolutely all the extra revenue, the concerts, the NFL, the rugby league, the boxing events. He's maximized the business side of it. And I think the reason why he kept his job for so long is because he had all these plans for Tottenham and that he's managed to execute it. But right now, there's not really much he can do on the revenue side to really sort of improve that. And I think he's served his term. I think he's served his limit. There's nowhere else for him to go. If Tottenham want to reach the next stage of revenue, that's going to come in astronomical deals with brands and stuff like that. Well, they all want to be associated with winners. That's where the big contracts come in. So I think their next step, when you look at the Lewis Trust, is even if they want to hold on to Tottenham, okay, how do we get into the next realm of, maximizing and bringing in more revenue into this football club? Well, the only next step is by looking to compete with the likes of your Man Cities, Liverpools, and things like that. And I think they gave Daniel Levy a chance and said, look, on this side of the thing, you've done brilliant. But in order for us to reach the next level, in terms of commercial deals and all, you have to start winning. So how are we going to bridge that gap? And I think they turned to him, and I think he showed his hand under Ange Postecoglou. He went after young talent across Europe because he couldn't get his hand on ready-made talent. The reason why he couldn't get his hand on many-made talent is because a lot of clubs didn't want to deal with him because of how notoriously he's been difficult to deal with down the years. So in effect, he sort of built this juggernaut, this monster club. He's turned it in from Tottenham Hotspur into absolute, global giants. It's sort of like the beast is eating him up because he doesn't know how on the field to take Tottenham to that next level. And that's by getting in players, better quality players on big deals. And Daniel Levy doesn't like taking that risk. He said it many a times before. But also B, no one wants to deal with him. So anytime he goes in now, no one wants to cut deals with him like they do with each other. They want the dollars that he's been accumulating from Tottenham Hotspur. So I think they gave him the opportunity. He proved and he's failed that he couldn't do it, by basically just rinsing and repeating the same model that got him the stadium and the finances to build the stadium and the training complex, which was buy young and develop them into a team and hopefully sell one or two on for hundreds of millions of pounds. But, as you see, every other team is copping on to that model now. Everyone else is buying young. So he's no longer, ruling that market, which is a big problem for him. And I think they gave him the opportunity under Ange Postecoglou to show that he has the way of turning it. He has the nous in terms of on the football field to start bringing in the achievements, and start competing with them big clubs with bringing the money. He's failed. So I think now they brought in Vinay, they brought in Charrington, and they would have done an inquest and probably realised and gone and spoke to a lot of people, a lot of other people around football, realised that he's a massive problem when it comes to achieving on the field success. And that's why they've ousted him and they're going to put someone else in.
And my quick theory on it, I agree with a lot you had to say. My quick theory is if there is maybe this new ambition inside the Lewis family to look at things a bit differently or just to have more influence and say, because they've had, of course, majority ownership, but we haven't really heard much about them. It's always been the face of Daniel Levy at the club. If they did want to inspire change of how the club operates, in a way, you kind of do have to get rid of the head or the main figure, because it felt like any source of controversy, any issues around Tottenham Hotspur, it was always Daniel Levy's reputation and sort of face that was attached to it. And if you want to inspire change of how Spurs can do transfers in the future, do different deals, all these types of things, it felt like you did kind of have to get rid of the guy that has been the source of controversy, from the protests to various ways that transfers have failed or not gotten over the line. So many different things Daniel Levy is just basically given the credit or sort of the blame for. And it kind of feels like maybe if you were to step into the role of having more influence at the club, you do kind of have to get rid of the guy that's just been the source of controversies for so long now. It's almost like, they're trying to get rid of like a Logan Roy succession planning type of thing that's happening here. But I mean, Billy, go ahead,
quickly,
Dave.
Jack. Where Daniel Levy's failure came in was, we all know that he wants his hands across everything, and I think me and Martin were speaking about this on the weekend, even down to the fragrances sort of selected in the toilet and stuff like that, and with the size of the club that he's built, there's no longer can he have his hands on absolutely everything. And if he was still doing that, which many people were saying he was, well, then other areas are going to end up being neglected because you can't put your all into it. And, I think Daniel Levy has sort of failed to sort of, what's that word? Delegate and really trust other people to do their job. And he still had his hands on everything. And with the size of Tottenham Hotspur now, if you are chairman of a club like this, you do need to delegate. You have to be able to delegate and trust people to do their job. And I think that's where he went wrong.
Yeah, I mean, he was smelling the fragrances for the toilets, but also trying to get an Eze deal done at the same time. Maybe a little bit too much micromanaging that was happening at the club. K32, really do appreciate the generosity, and thanks for being in here with us, Kieran. Hopefully everything's all right with you, and hopefully you're coming to terms with the post-Levy era, and we'll be talking about, of course, his legacy, but also what it does mean for the future. Will things change? Because the title of the show, as you can tell, Kieran, is more trophies or more problems. Will things continue to be the same, or will we happen to see maybe some changes in and around the club? What's Daniel Levy's legacy as a Spurs chairman for you, Billy? Will he be appreciated long after he's gone, like you mentioned in that Gary Neville interview?
I think his legacy is in kind of two parts. I think on the first part, there is the stadium, which will probably be the main part of his legacy forever. And the second part is probably getting us into a position that we're in now, where we're able to go and spend huge amounts of money. We are able to sort of bridge the gap between the big six and us revenue-wise. He's put us more in line with those clubs, by being probably the best business chairman in the Premier League. But the other half, and for me the most important half, will be the disappointment that we haven't won more trophies and we haven't had more success. I think especially when you look at some of the teams we've had, some of the players we've had, 2 trophies in the last 20 years, whatever it is, just completely unacceptable. And that's a real shame. I think there's been so much good stuff done, without a doubt, financially. But on the football pitch, it's not been good enough over the last 25 years, without a doubt. And I think, for me, the thing that summarizes it the most is you can't have a player like Harry Kane going trophyless throughout his Tottenham career. It's unacceptable. It's an absolute failure. The fact that he's left us before winning a trophy is unforgivable in my opinion. So I think his legacy is of two parts. Off the pitch, great. On the pitch, disappointing.
Would that be kind of the same for you, Martin?
Yeah, it's one of them. It ain't just a one bundle. It is, and like the likes of Billy and his movement and everyone that goes with there, I think they will all admit business side and what he's built. You've got to acknowledge.
Mm-hmm.
But as football fans, do you really care? Not really. It's great to have, but it's like having a 150 grand car and you can't afford to put the petrol in it, innit? It's just, it don't mean nothing without what it is on a pitch. But can I just post a question, just to one of my little thoughts going on? Do you think that them trying to squeeze him out, do you think it's a way that they're trying to get his shares back of him? Because he's had control and he calls it his, and everyone associates Tottenham Hotspur with Daniel Levy and not Enoch. And do you know what I mean? Do you think that they're trying to squeeze him out and get him over his shares and then they have full control? Because he's had control, but they have the ultimate power. But they've left it all up to him. You know what I mean? So is there a way that they're trying to squeeze him out fully, or?
On that one, I'm not sure on that one, Martin. I think, I do think they have I do think they all Levy a bit of respect to a regard. They wouldn't be in football if it wasn't for Levy. He's the one that persuaded Enoch and Joe Lewis to buy into Rangers, Slavia Prague.
No, I do.
Tottenham Hotspur. I'm not sure that they're trying to squeeze him out. I just wonder, has he been a hindrance in terms of stopping Tottenham progressing on the football pitch, which then brings in the next belt of revenues that they obviously want to try and achieve. But also with a lot of the noise around Tottenham Hotspur, a lot of people not wanting to deal with Tottenham Hotspur, I think becomes a problem as well. And I think what they've done is they've removed the face and just put them silently operating in the background. I've seen many major companies do this before. Okay, he's attracting news, we'll put him, but they still operate, behind closed doors. And I would argue, what's worse, someone operating in front of your face where the media attention's always on them and you can sort of scapegoat them to a large degree or catch them out, or someone that's operating in the shadows. I'd argue someone operating in shadows is more dangerous than someone operating in front of the camera.
He might have reached his metaphorical ceiling maybe with the Lewis family. K32 saying, I think Levy's legacy is built off of a fabulous Spurs off the field. Our facility is the best in the world. Hopefully now will be successful on the field. I think K32 also mentioned earlier, we'll only be able to see and tell, the differences between the Levy era and now this more pronounced Lewis era in a few seasons or two. It's not going to happen necessarily overnight.
I think when it comes to his legacy, though, it depends on how you view football. Look, I got into football because Spurs played it a beautiful way, an attractive way, but also for me, I believe, the aim of the game is to try and improve each year, to build yourself up, to be able to go and win honours. So, as a football fan, from that perspective, and what I enjoy about football, he sort of failed massively. But in terms of, in an era where you do have to sort of accept that finance and business and all, and money is a part of it, when there's a lot of clubs struggling, like you go through the Premier League list, a lot of them clubs are in massive debt. If an economy crunch comes, a lot of them are going to absolutely struggle. He has left us on a solid financial footing. He has left us in a position that if someone comes in with any real sort of ambition, all the infrastructure, all the room in terms of financial movement, in terms of PRSI and everything else, they can sort of come in, hit the ground running, invest real sort of big money into it. And look,
we're not a risk or a gamble for a billionaire to come in and go, well, we've got to do this, we've got to do that. And, it is there ready to go, isn't it? It's someone to just push that final to the pitch. But so I see someone said the other day that he had 2 stadium sponsorship deals sitting on the table that he's not done nothing with. He didn't want to do it. Have you anyone heard of that?
Yeah,
there's a few things like that, yeah. And another one is obviously the minority investment that's reared its head again. There's a few reports that apparently people have been put off by the fact that, negotiating with him and even in takeovers and stuff, that apparently that his demand, and obviously you never know what's actually true in all these things. So just take that with a pinch of salt. But the fact that apparently, Paul O'Keefe, I saw tweeting today that apparently he wanted to stay on 6 years as chairman if there was any takeover. And I just think it kind of spills into the transfers, the Trent Stadium rights, the takeover, and everything. Is that he's just really difficult to negotiate with. And I think at this point, you know, and I hate to use them as an example because I think they're ruining football in many ways. But if you look at Chelsea, the amount of deals that get done in all sorts of dodgy areas, that's the way the game's going now. You have to just be able to make deals. You have to be able to, you know, in the PSR era, you have to be able to sell, buy really quickly. Otherwise, you get left behind.
I think there was a time and a place for Daniel Levy to operate the way he operated. But now with the beast that he's built, there has to be a different way of operating. And he's not willing, and he's shown that he's not willing to operate that way. You know, he's shown that time and time again. So the club does need a sort of fresh perspective in that regard, just so we can start approaching clubs and getting deals done, because, you know, one of the main stumbling blocks is out of the way.
Could I just, again, I don't feel this way, but I've only been a Spurs fan for 15 years. So during my short time as one, it kind of started out where Spurs, I felt like there was a period where we kind of were just continuously progressing in terms of status, not as much trophies. Like we were starting to get into Europe regularly. And then we were eventually, after the Andre Villas-Boas days and even after the Pochettino days, we signed some of the best managers in world football. In the case of Jose Mourinho, Antonio Conte, when we had signed those two guys, all of a sudden, you know, did feel like, geez, like we really are like amongst the very best at this point. The fact that even in the Super League, you know, during that whole fiasco, that Spurs were even in the, you know, conversation to be one of the Super League teams was kind of incredible to me, be amongst all these other big clubs in it. I mean, it's just felt like since maybe the Antonio Conte post-Pochettino days, post-Mourinho days, we've only just slipped backwards or stalled, if you wanted to be generous. I would say more slip backwards. But there was a period in time where it felt like Spurs were in a way kind of progressing, and then he just maybe lost his way, Daniel.
And I think that's probably the biggest regret of his legacy, and probably himself as well, is that he never really knew how to take the final step. And I think what it needed is a bit more throwing cautions to win one transfer window, just go out and spend, you know, especially when we had Pochettino. Like the fact that team won no trophies is crazy. And like that period when we were just moving into the new stadium, you know, the season before, we went unbeaten at home, won 17 out of 19 home games, like finishing second, third in the league. We were on the up. Like we had a young team, young manager, and that's when we really failed, I think. And that the failure of that is probably the failure of Levy. That's probably his biggest regret looking back. I just think we had to take a few more risks, and to do, you know, if you're gonna have sustained success at the top, you have to take risks. And Daniel Levy is a very risk-averse businessman, I think, at the end of the day. And he probably look back and regret now, especially that era when Matt Pochettino era, he didn't quite back him enough. You know, give him a squad of players rather than a team of players. I think that would be his biggest regret.
Well, I think that's one thing that really irked a lot of Spurs fans, especially Spurs fans like me. You're seeing them getting awards and recognitions for being paving the way, being brave, taking risks in terms of the business world, you know, in terms of what he's doing with the stadium and everything else. When it comes to actually on the football pitch, what's the point of bringing in Jose if you're going to bring in Joe Rodon, Ryan Sessegnon, and players like that for the guy to work with? You know, he never really actually matched the ambition that he showed in a commercial sense on the football side of things. And if he did, he may have done it in a managerial appointment, which is cheaper, you know, in modern day football to hire foreign managers than it is to go out and buy the right players to help make that manager successful. And that's where Spurs fans got alienated. We're seeing him picking up awards all over the world for all his business acumen, but when it comes to the football club, which is what we actually support, and to be fair, a lot of Spurs, it's not like Spurs fans turned their back on this guy. A lot of Spurs fans like me went with him along the project to get the stadium and everything else. But I felt like someone like me, I felt I was lied to by Daniel Levy. You know, we were told we build a stadium, we bring in, you know, the best revenues, we're able to then, you know, keep our best players, match the wages that top clubs are offering them, and also go and compete for the top players and have the cash to go and do it. But since then, since it's been open, all we've heard is excuse after excuse and reasons why we can't rather than reasons why we can. And when you're seeing the likes of the Chelsea owner come in, they're in a tight financial pinch. Look at what that guy's willing to do in order to try and help Chelsea be successful on the pitch. And you're seeing a new breed of owners come in where they don't care about the finances. They care about winning. And that outdates Daniel Levy by a long mile. And you're actually seeing the likes of the Chelsea owner now actually coming in and outperforming Daniel Levy, but with ambition of winning something in terms of business acumen. They sold a hotel to themselves and everything else. You know, you're seeing guys come in now that are just as smart as Daniel Levy in the business sense, but with ambition. And that's where we're falling behind.
100%. Now we need to get to the title of the show here. post-Levy era, will this mean more trophies or still the same problems? Will we see actual success on the football pitch on a more regular basis now that Levy is gone? I'll go to you, Martin, then come back to Billy.
Well, I'll start with the hope. I hope we do. But like going back to what you said, Jack, about like 15 years and seeing the progression. I'm assuming I'm the oldest one on the panel here, but when I was at junior school, and I'm from a West Ham area, so there was only me and my best mate that were Tottenham, and you all had that fight in West Ham, Tottenham, you know. But we had the bragging rights that we had won the most FA Cups, and we'd done, you know, we had something to boast about and to hold your own in a child argument. Do you know what I mean? But you know, we was known as a cup team, and I'll take the cup team because we were still successful. We were never going to win the league. It's been donkey's years since we won the league, but the cups, it was always a good day out. The FA Cups was a big thing for us, and then all of a sudden Wenger and that come in and just went bang, 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 and we just got left behind, I think. And then Levy come in and grew the business. But as I say, it took him, another 7-8 years to win a Carabao Cup, and then another 17 years for us to go to win another trophy. So I hope that off the back of that, they've seen everything they don't like about him internally and how he acts and everything else. And they are serious. It's a bit hard to believe because they've still been there. It's not like we've got new owners. It's still them. So it's a bit hard to believe just straight off the bat, slate clean, Levy gone, right, we're going to be challenging. I can't get on board with that. I hope that, you know, they do actually want to be successful and want to, you know what I mean, challenge for the league. I still don't ever expect us to win the league. So, but at least we're knocking on the door and we're back up there like we was with Potts consistently, and Harry Redknapp consistently up there and having a good go at it. You know, we even got to the Champions League final, but we're having a go. Something to hold your own about, because we can be a bit deluded and think we're better than we are, but you just hope that they're coming in there, and as I say, it's all done. All the staff are in place, all the buildings are in place, all the revenues are in place, all this, that, and the other. Right, now show us your ambition. Show us this window. We have bought a better caliber of player. We've spent less money than we have. Like he's spent fortunes under Ange. So I think he throws money at it and thinks, well, why ain't it working? But what they're not doing is buying the right players with that money. We've spent less money this year and we've got much better players. So it can be done if you care about the team. If you just want to throw money at it and spend 40 million on a kid, it ain't going to work. It's not going to bring you success. There ain't that many Lamine Yamals and young Messis and all that out there. We're not getting them. So to go out and buy a 30-year-old, 29-year-old Paulinho to shore up the defence, to help Romero and Mickey van der Ven, so they're not running like and getting their hamstrings and all this done, help them create a stability, and then we can build on that. So, say for January, for me, if they can identify 1 or 2 players, go for it. Then next summer we build again. But all that messing around and getting young kids and hijacking them and think because we've got Bergvall from Barcelona and all this, this is great. It's not. We've got to buy the right caliber of players, be smarter and sensible, and put your money where it's going to matter, not bringing them in and throwing them in the youth team. We've got enough youth. Look how many we had to get out this summer. They're not getting a chance to stop buying youth. It's just not working. We need to have youth, but our youth that you've invested 10 years in have been thrown out to Plymouth and Doncaster and things like that because you're buying other kids to take their place. So, as Dave said earlier, that model is past in now. We need to go out, buy sensible. If it means 2 or 3 players, but in the right key areas that are really going to excel the team, then that's what we need to do. So we can all see the plan, but it all comes with a bit of trepidation and a little bit of hope, doesn't it?
I mean, I don't necessarily know fully how to squad plan. I haven't had the opportunity yet, you know, in the real life, but you would imagine if you get your investment right in the players, you don't have to be spending 200 million every window. If you do it correctly enough, you can sort of chip in here and there to replace a player that might be going or something like that. But the fact that Spurs have felt like every season we keep talking about all these new players that we need to bring in. Just screams
Forward
of
planning.
poor squad planning.
But
If
there
you get it
wasn't
right,
just-
you wouldn't need to be signing 5, 6, 7 players every window like
It
we
wasn't-
have been asking for.
It wasn't just down to poor squad planning, though. Daniel Levy operated an Abramovich model without actually providing the squad. He was chopping and changing managers every 2 years.
too,
You look at the tenureship and the amount of managers we had. It roughly adds up. Every 2 years we've been chopping and changing managers. And regardless if you bring in 3 defensive managers on the trot, like we've seen with Nuno, Jose, and Conte, they all have different ways of playing that system and different needs and different requirements and different players that they want for them systems. Which means when you're chopping and changing every 2 years, in effect, every window, you're going in looking to plug 8, 9, 10 gaps. And that's where your problem was at Tottenham Hotspur.
And getting
What you're actually seeing in the world of football now is you look at Man City, look how long, they have money to throw on it, but look how long Guardiola's been in the job. So when they go into the transfer market, they're literally going in to fix 1 or 2 problems to keep making themselves successful. You look at Liverpool and how long they had Jurgen Klopp in, that built them to to a point where they could challenge and eventually got them over the line, so that when they were going into the market, they're in a position just to go 2 or 3 players, get the best player for that position that we can possibly get. Let's drop it in. You look at the likes of Arsenal. I hate to say it, but look how long they kept Arteta in the job. And look, they're up there challenging every single year now. So I think the next step that Tottenham needs to make is, and hopefully they've done this with the appointment of Thomas Frank, is keeping them in the dugout longer than 2 years. And the reason why I think Frank has a chance of surviving longer than 2 years at Tottenham is because of the transfer business we done this summer in terms of Paulinho, if we can get him in again come the summer, Xavi Simons, Kolo Muani, and Kudos. They're players that should help Frank to a respectable season, which then gives him a chance going into next summer to bring in you add a couple more to that, and then all of a sudden you're a better team. Frank has another good season, a bit like what we've done under Pochettino. Build it year on year. Although I'd argue Pochettino was hard done by when he showed his work, they didn't back him. But that's why the reason why I'm really hesitant to sort of believe that more trophies are going to start coming in now is because Daniel Levy operated under the Lewis directive for the last 20 odd years.
Yeah,
exactly.
And I don't believe, I know there's bits that are being dropped out that, they're Tottenham fans and they want the best for this club. But Daniel Levy used to roll off the same lines. I'm a Tottenham fan. Of course, I want this club to be successful, everything else. Look, for me, I actually give them a free pass in January. Next summer will show me their true ambition of what they want from this football club in the transfer market. Yeah. That's what's going to show me. Now, of course, there's arguments to make that maybe they put Vinay and they put Charrington in place to maybe conduct large parts of this transfer window. That's why we've seen a change.
Because it has been a very clear change.
And Billy, if this is a summer to go by, then I am excited. But next summer, are they going to back it up? Because to be brutally honest, under Ange Postecoglou, first window, Vicario, Van de Ven, Madison, players like that. But they never backed it up after that. So the next couple of windows... Yeah, exactly. The next couple of windows will actually show me their true ambition for this football club. I hope it's not a case that actually, to be honest, I don't care. It might actually work out better for Tottenham, but it could genuinely be a case that they've cleared him out the way. And I think it'll lead on to your next question, so that they can get a takeover deal done, wash their hands with Tottenham Hotspur. Remains to be seen. But I'm not jumping on the bandwagon that I'm all of a sudden behind Enoch. He was operating off their direction for the last 20 odd years, so I'm not jumping on that.
It's not like he was operating behind their back or anything like that, and it's not like it's someone that's totally new to the club in the case of Enoch. Just to you, Billy, now that Levy's gone, more trophies, right?
Well, if you look at over a 25-year period, it can barely be any less, put it that way. So it almost has to be by default, right? Like we've won 1 in 17 years, so you'd hope so. And I do think this window does point to a change in direction. And I think I'd be very, very surprised if the new directive, the new ownership, the new whatever is going on didn't have a hand in this window, because we've never had a transfer window under Enoch or Daniel Levy's Enoch or Daniel Levy-led Enoch, or however we're going to roll it, where we've signed 4 first-team players. Well, certainly not in recent times anyway. And there was a sort of, we were shopping in a different pool of players. We had to face some high-profile humiliations in, Morgan Gibbs-White and Eza, but, they're both players that all the fan base would have wanted. So there's definitely been a change in direction, but if you're going to be successful in the era, you have to do that window after window after window. If you look at Arsenal, what they're doing, they have transfer windows like this one every single summer without fail. So that's the level. So I'd be really, really skeptical to believe that everything's going to be completely different now Levy's gone, just because we still have the same owners. So I'm cautiously excited about it. And I don't, for a club of our size and this, it'd be difficult to imagine a period where we don't win more trophies than what we've had in the last 25 years, because that would be another catastrophic failure.
The thing is, if they showed a bit of ambition, there's no reason why they can't go and challenge for trophies and be able to chip off a couple every couple of years, you know what I mean, and build a squad to be able to do it. Where we are right now, where we're positioned, we are literally just waiting for someone of the same ambition as the Man City owners, as the Liverpool board, as the Arsenal board. That's all we're waiting. It's just some ambition to be shown. Everything else is there for this club to be the Harlem Globetrotters of fucking football. Honestly, the amount of money that'll come in from countries that are wanting us to go and tour there, our players will get astronomical deals off the back of it. They will be like the Harlem Globetrotters. All this club needs is a bit of ambition to be successful on the pitch.
And you can credit to Levy, because he has got us to a point where we pretty much have the most PSR headroom in the league. We've got 300 million PSR headroom, which is unheard of. Clubs like Aston Villa and Newcastle would absolutely murder someone for that kind of money, that kind of headroom. And we've got it, but I would never sort of imagine under Daniel Levy we'd ever get close to utilising it. And now if you look at Arsenal, they're on the very brink of their PSR headline. Their wage bill is at the almost upper limit of what it can be. Aston Villa is the same. To their own detriment, in fact. But I can't imagine a transfer window in the Levy where we really get close to maxing out that PSR headroom. So hopefully now he's gone, it might happen, because the PSR, I think Daniel Levy has himself spoken about the PSR era, how Tottenham will be in a great position, but we've never really jumped at the chance and taken it like we have now, which hopefully
he likes the cushion.
Exactly, we've never really pushed it, to Martin's point. And I think we speak about Aston Villa being on the very limit and clubs like that. Fair play to them. The board has shown a bit of ambition. The reality is they don't have a go-kart track to be able to take the pressure away from the limits. They don't get concerts, boxing events. They don't have skywalks. They don't have abseiling, and shit like that to be able to subsidize that, which would actually technically give us a lot of room, in terms of not being as constrained as your Newcastles or your Aston Villas, because they just don't have the way of making revenue the way we do. We've got the largest club shop in football.
Yeah, seriously. It's a museum in there. Ed Case 1882 saying, good evening all, great to be back. Are we on the up? ? That's what we're trying to figure out. Is Frank the man? I'm undecided. Come on, you Spurs. Come on, you Harris Army. Dave, can you give Ed Case anything to believe in?
Yeah, look, I think I've sort of answered that just a minute ago in terms of, I think Frank is the right appointment. I think we've made the right signings. You keep adding signings like that, Frank stays in the job longer. You build a team to be able to go and compete. But however, I'm very hesitant to jump on, the Lewis family and getting behind them, because, Daniel Levy didn't put these constraints on himself. He's only a minority shareholder. They have the largest sharehold. So I'm hesitant to jump on it. I think we'll let Martin and Billy in on this one.
Anything to get excited about, Martin? Can you convince Ed to start happy clapping?
Well, I think you need to jump on the Frank thing, because before he even come to Tottenham, like the way he looks and studies at football, he's not had a massive football career that he done 15, 20 years as a footballer and then went into management. He has done coaching all the way along. He lives and breathes tactics and coaching and things like that. So you need to get on board. Listen, his whole success ain't just up to him. But I think, he kept saying all summer when we were linked with Eze and all this going on, he went, they don't want to be here, they don't want to come here. I don't want it if they don't enhance the team. So he's talking about these youngsters that are going to come and sit in the squad. He wants first team players to move us forward. I think he's got a plan. It's now up to the big wigs that love football and want to be successful. Will now show it. You've got the man in place to do it. Back him, give him what he wants, whether it's 2 or 3 players, not 10. Go and get him the 2 or 3 he wants, and I'm sure he will bring success to Tottenham. So I hope Ed Case gets on board.
Sometimes I get a little bit more excited about a manager that maybe didn't have an amazing footballing career. Like you even look at Oliver Glasner. I think he was playing like Austrian second division or something.
Jose was the same.
Jose the same. De Zerbi as well. So many up and coming managers that were not really necessarily the best of players. Even Arne Slot, played for like that Heron team, or however you pronounce it. He wasn't really much of a great player himself.
Jurgen Klopp didn't have a great career, did he?
Yeah, probably maybe a bit more middle of the road in his case. Yeah, Mainz and not really much else other than that. Really appreciate the support, Ed Case. I'm getting behind Thomas Frank, but I can see why you still might be a little bit undecided. Still very, very early days, of course. Alan, good to see you as always. Hopefully you're doing okay, my friend. Dermatron is in here with us as well, kind of echoing a lot of the same sentiments about Daniel Levy being good off the pitch, but not as good on. Paul Brown saying rumors that the Lewis family are now wishing to get more involved, where they just blind in 1920 and 21 when we actually required that investment. That's a fair point. And then Patty Harnett saying Daniel Levy knew weeks ago that this was happening. Vivian Lewis was the one behind all this happening. Now the proof is in the pudding, and seeing that they will come back to the football side of the club. And good to see Ricky Nato as well. And Patty Hartnett's also calling us out for the lack of flat caps on the panel. The standards have gone to the absolute floor. Patty, we do apologize. And then we have Taylor Knightsbridge. The Knightsbridge army is only growing and growing. Big up to Taylor and the house. The Frank engine will provide, hopefully, trophies. Billy, we have a question specifically for you. What will change for Tottenham's next move be? And is it over, or are you guys still going to maybe put pressure on Enoch and maybe give them, though, a chance to see if they can change things?
It's certainly, an exciting time. Hopefully for the club, we're starting to see some different movement. We've had huge movement over summer. Benai, Donna going, Levy going. I don't think, in my wildest dreams, I would have imagined a situation where Levy would be not at the club.
Yeah.
This season just didn't ever seem possible. But at the same time, I think it's really interesting, actually, the point that, the point that Matt Barden makes in the chat. He says, NX seems to be rebranded as the Lewis family. And I think they've made an almost intentional push to rebrand them. So you keep getting seen the word Tavistock coming out the woodwork now. That hasn't been used around to associate with Tottenham for ages. And the Lewis family. At the end of the day, they're trying to rebrand it, but they are still NX. And the movement's always been, I'm not talking about change for Tottenham necessarily. I'm talking about the sort of this wave of fans that have been frustrated with the ownership, and Enoch out has been one of the huge phrases, and I think they're trying to move away from that, but really they haven't. So I think change for Tottenham will definitely be assessing and seeing what's happening. Trying to be a platform for voice of the fans, but we'd like nothing more than I'd absolutely love if we had absolutely nothing to do for the next 2 seasons. That'd be my dream, because that means we've been a successful football club. And that's all we really want. So happy days.
Can I ask Billy a question?
Of course.
Yeah.
So do you agree we sort of got to give them like a bit of a free hit till, like I say, the January and then the summer? So
I think even
it's
summer.
Your importance of trying to get things done and all that. Does it give you a chance to recoup and look at the bigger picture and say, right, well, if this doesn't happen, we can do? Does it give you a bit more thinking time, to be a bit more logical rather than a bit reactive to what's going on? Just, you know what I mean? Be
without a doubt, I would say, mate, without a doubt. And I think, this transfer window, we've been through the ring of this transfer window as a fan base. It's been a wild few months. Like some of the stuff that's happened to us. We've lost our captain, we've lost our chairman. We had 2 incredibly high-profile humiliation transfer sagas that ended up Tottenham looking absolutely stupid in them. It's just been a bit crazy. And I think, reflecting on a personal level of change for Tottenham, we probably have been a bit too reactive at times in reaction to that, because the fan base have been really angry online and sort of, there's been a lot of frustration. But now I think we sort of can move past all that and look at the future, and hopefully this big changes that are happening will hopefully come to fruition. And I don't think any fan, or certainly any sensible fan, will just imagine that this change has happened now and Tottenham are going to go and win the league this season. Football doesn't work like that. But
there's probably a few.
I'm sure there are, certainly on Twitter anyway. But I'm sure we just want to see progress. And I think it's quite ironic, and it probably does speak to what we were talking about earlier with Dave. But I think maybe there was a new direction in this transfer window, because I think Daniel Levy is leaving probably after his best transfer window under Enoch, which is quite funny. It's a bit of a weird paradox there. And I think if we continue to have windows like this where we sign 4 first-team players every window, a couple of first-team players, a couple of big-wage players, people will be happy. So that's what we're hoping for anyway.
At the end of the day, to Billy's point, Billy didn't grow up going, I'm getting into football in Tottenham Hotspur because I want to protest. You know, he
Exactly,
got in
yeah.
because he enjoys the beautiful game and he wants to see a good standard on the football pitch. So as long as you're seeing ambition from your board to try and make that happen, and we're not being neglected for all these, you know, business side of things and stuff like that, well, then there's going to be no protests. It's not hard. You show a bit of
And
ambition.
do you know what I've always pointed to on that? What I've always pointed to on that, Dave, this question's come up a lot. And or similar questions. And I've always said, when Tottenham we had Harry Kane, Christian Eriksen, Dele Alli, that team. We finished second in the league. We finished third in the league. We were in title races. There were no mention of any protests. There was the talk of leaving out and stuff was died down because we had an ambitious football club that looked like they could actually win things. Unfortunately, it didn't happen, obviously. But you know, fans just want to know that their team are having a go. That's what we really want to see as football fans, I think.
Yeah.
Isn't it also though, like a lot of protests and demonstrations come off like when you're recognizing patterns of behavior and patterns of way like the club operates?
Yeah.
Exactly. So you have this evidence to work with to know why you're protesting, to know why you're demonstrating. Whereas now, even though we, like you kind of said, it is still the ENIC group, we have to, I guess, give them whatever length of time that we think is appropriate to see if things can change. We have to play a version of a long game here and see if, you know, any way they operate could be different from before. But Dermotron's already putting some pressure on them here, Dave. He's saying January we'll see if anything changes. I don't think it has. Frank needs to be backed over 3 windows to show us it has changed, or naming rights as we are hosting games in the Euros of 2028. We can't take one on. Come on, you Spurs.
Look, when I'll deal with the naming rights and then I'll come back around to why I think January is too soon to maybe go after ENIC and, you know, test their level of ambition. But I'll start with the naming rights. Look, with the naming rights, I'm a bit of a traditionalist. I prefer it to be called the Tottenham Hotspur Stadium. To be honest with you, I prefer if they went back to call it White Hart Lane or something like that. You know, we're not a club that need to sell their naming rights. Club have notoriously sold naming rights because, you know, they were looking to squeeze every ounce of everything they've got. But we've got so many other ways of making revenue, more than any other sports club or more football or in the world, by the way. We don't actually need to sell the naming rights. What the naming rights is going to bring in is absolutely pittance to everything else that, you know, we have that supplements or is supposed to supplement the football side of things. So on the naming rights, look, I think we brought in Todd Klein, didn't we, to specifically, he was an expert in that field, and we sacked him, which I think maybe alludes to that we're not going to squeeze that sort of, the penny, or Sean Butler likes to say, you know, the extra juice or whatever. But when it comes to January, look, I think January is a notoriously hard window to operate in. Even when we needed massive help in the last 2 January windows on the Postecoglou, there still wasn't a lot of great quality on the market to really come in and impact what we're doing. In fact, if you look through the history of January signings, there's across all football clubs, there's very few that have come in and made a massive impact from January to the end of the season. It is notoriously a very difficult window to operate in. And to be honest with you, it's a window you're operating in if you failed in the summer transfer window largely, or you've ended up incurring a lot of injuries. But there's not usually great players on the market. And if there is, you're going into the hundreds of millions to force a club to sell. So for me, personally, I'm just being a realist. I think that's too soon as a real test of ENIC's ambition. I think next summer, when you've got 3-4 months to operate and you've got a few months in the build-up to sort of put your plans in place, for me, that's where I'm going to test the true ambition of this ownership. You know, as the boys are saying, their rebrand of the Lewis family. Let's wait and see what the Lewis family put up next summer.
I just got to say, but end quickly, guys. Daniel Levy's legacy lives on, as Gorillas have just been announced at the new stadium. So there you go. Gorillas at Tottenham Hotspur Stadium. They're still getting the bands rolling in.
How many times have they performed there versus Beyonce? Maybe we're switching towards some new bands. You know,
was it System of a Down yesterday, wasn't it, as well? And then now Gorillas.
Yeah. Let's hope Kendrick Lamar remains a Tottenham fan even post Levy.
I might have to get down there. I've got 1 million black balloons that I was hoping to get rid of this season, but they're all out the window now. So I've got a garage full.
I'll buy them off you, mate.
Does anyone want to come in on this? Do we think January is too soon, maybe to judge?
Too soon.
Too soon. If we did go out and sign Savinho, though, that'd be, that's a massive.
That's what I think. Identify one player we need. Like you've got a month or 2 now to look at the team. If there's any injuries, as Tell or Odebert, or we're pushing Richie out there to do these things, work it out, and then give yourself a month or 2 to identify the player one. Start the work now. So in January, go and get him, and then you can go right. Let's then look forward to the summer. But I think January is a little too soon to whack pressure on, because it's hard. We all know it's hard.
And I think if we sign one first-team player in January, everyone will be happy. If it's Savinho, that's massive.
A good one.
Massive signing, yeah.
Yeah, I completely agree with you both. Maybe just one position that might need some urgent need or just some attention to is probably all what we'll be expecting. Won't be expecting massive investment unless maybe a PSG player of some kind gets really upset, and then maybe we can have an opportunistic deal there. That would be pretty nice if we have time for it. We only have really about one more question, here to maybe discuss, and it's just about the idea of maybe there still being a possibility of a takeover. Vinay came out and said that they have no plans of selling. What did you make of, him saying that they have no plans of selling? Do you actually believe that? Maybe they are lining up the club to still be sold. I was also listening to Talk Sport, as I usually do, as I'm on various errands and sort of half listening. But Simon Jordan seemed to suggest that maybe part of the reason why Daniel Levy was kicked out the club was because of the ways that he was going about potentially selling on the club. That maybe that was the reason that he was sacked, was because he wasn't doing it correctly, or he was doing it maybe in the way that they didn't really want him to. So any thoughts? Maybe go to you first, Billy, on this, on the idea of them actually selling the club. Is there a possibility it still happens?
Oh, I think there's a definite possibility, to be honest. I definitely think, if you talk about a long-term, short-term future, I think I would say within 5 years, I'll be looking to sell at the very, very least, at the very latest, sorry. I just kind of get the impression they wouldn't be making these changes unless there was a big payoff coming, looking for it, or at the very least we might get some minority investment or something like that. I think the quotes coming out saying they're not going to sell the club, I wouldn't hold much weight to those, because the last thing you want to do is weaken your bargaining position, isn't it? And sort of say, yeah, the club's up for sale, come and get us. Whereas if you're sort of positioning from bargaining from a position of strength by saying we're not for sale, and apparently there is quite a lot of interest, particularly now that Levy's gone. They had this weird rule which I didn't know existed, that you have to sort of publicly declare interest and stuff like that. And 2 people have come forward. Stavley's come forward. There's a couple of rumours last night that Qatar are coming forward. Saudi, we had ever-present links with. So I wouldn't be surprised one bit if they were gearing towards a sale in the next 2-3 years at all.
Do you agree with that, Dave, on what Billy said?
Yeah, on that, I wouldn't be surprised. I think maybe part of, if Simon Jordan is correct, that Daniel Levy is maybe being sort of making deals, or the sell of the club more difficult. I think, moving them, into the shadows maybe makes it a bit more easier for someone like Charrington or someone to get a deal done. But also, by them coming out and saying the club isn't for sale, that's not going to warn people off. Everyone's going to want to buy Tottenham Hotspur. At the end of the day, all that's doing is increasing the value. All they've got to do is take the position. We're not up for sale. Give us what we're asking for. Because if it's well known out there and well reported that you are looking to sell, like it has been in recent years, it sort of brings down the value. So for me, it makes sense for them to come out and say it regardless. And then it gives them a whole year, practically a whole season, to sort of bide their time on what they want to do.
And I think if you're an investor, like Tottenham are by far the most attractive club at the moment. Like they're such, they make endless revenue. We've seen what happens if you take over a club like Newcastle, where they've got essentially infinite money where they can't spend it. That won't be a problem at Tottenham. You can, we have, as we've discussed on the show, so much, revenue and potential expenditure that we just must be so attractive to buyers. So I don't think these quotes saying we're not for sale is going to put anyone off.
No.
Martin, anything to add to the possibility of us being sold? Do you think it is going to happen?
I think there's definitely an exit strategy. And as Billy's saying, like we're all assuming now Levy's gone and then bids are coming right for sale. I don't think that's their plan. I think, so they've built the whole business. If they can bring that little bit more success on the pitch, that will boost the price. And all the noise on the outside, the negativity and the Levy out and all this that's seen on the telly that potentially brings the price down, they don't want that. They're going to want to maximise and hit the button at the right number, And if they're at 3.5 billion and they go, we need 4. Well, they've got a number what they want to hit, and I think it's a 2 to 3 year plan. And the more interest of Qatar and all these coming in, other people are going to look and go, well, hold on, what are they buying now? What would they want? Well, Qatar is going to pay 3.5 billion. Well, let's go in at 3.8, and then someone else comes in. Well, no, we'll go for. That's what they're hoping for. That we're not for sale. So it's like one of them things. You know, you must be for sale. What's your number? What's your number?
Right.
And I say, if they get all the nice stuff on the outside done, if they get the football right, and the fans are happy or customers, you know, everyone's happy, and then they're bringing in silverware and these days. Look at what we've got. Look at this, and it's just driving the revenue up. And I think that's part of the Levy thing. That it's a bigger picture. I just think he went too quick, or quicker than it was written down on paper. But yeah, they definitely want to sell.
I think Martin's absolutely spot on. I think by taking Levy out, it takes all that media attention, all the sort of negativity away from the fan base. Look what it's already done in terms of the Tottenham fan base. Everyone seems more seeing people popping champagne and everything else, you know, when it happens. So, you know, you look at that, the effect that that's already had. You know, I think you look at the transfer market they've had. It's clear that they want a quick route to get Tottenham back up, fighting up the top half of the, you know, a quick route sort of into the top 6 again in the Premier League. And I think, you know, they'll just turn around and say, you know, but we're in a unique position to any prospective buyers. I think, in fact, ousting Daniel Levy sort of brings in more buyers, because I've no doubt there'll be people going, I don't really want to deal with Tottenham if he's in the negotiation. So now that he's cleared out the way, I think it actually brings more people to the table, which then drives up the value of the football club. And if the likes of Simmons comes in, does well, Mawani comes in and hits the ground running and really takes his football club to new heights, that brings more money on top of it. So I think, you know, I think Martin's absolutely right. I think they are sort of steering it in a direction where, you know, they can get out of here. They can all take their piece of daddy's fortune and then sort of go in their own directions with their life. I think that's maybe, you know, what the plan is there. But I think by clearing Daniel Levy out the way, it certainly brings a lot more people to the table. And I think the unique perspective of Tottenham Hotspur is when you're buying Tottenham, you're not losing money.
Yeah.
You can make it as a self-sustainable club and still go and compete with the top clubs because the amount of different revenue streams we have. So it's just going to bring more interest to the table. What businessman doesn't want to, you know, wants to lose money? No, Tottenham, you're not taking that risk. Any other club you buy outside of the 4 profitable clubs in the Premier League, you're selling money. You're losing money. With Tottenham Hotspur, you're not. So it just drives up the price. I wouldn't be surprised to see this.
Do you think they've looked at the Man United takeover, and they had the one full takeover, and they chose the smaller investment, and then they've seen what's happened there, and they've gone, no, we want full package. If we're doing it, we want top dollar, and we want our walk away with our money.
Yeah, 100%.
The Man United model of, right, let's get a smaller investor, we take a back seat, really on paper and to the world, it doesn't look like it's working well, does it?
Well, with Man United, there was a lot of corporates that sort of bought into it, and then the Glazers came in, bought a lot of them out, had control and power. Anyone that was left sort of didn't really have much of a say. And I think, you know, they would have looked at that, seen how much of a shambles that sort of turned into, and, you know, they want to get as much as they can and get out. I think, you know, with football, the world that's in and the money, it's going to burst soon. It's going to burst soon. And these people, you know, they're good business people. They can foresee these things. They forecast these things, and they get out at the right time.
Yeah. I think we'll call it there, everybody. I think that was a wonderful show from these guys. Very efficient. We're putting Levy to rest, like I said, because there are only so many more shows and conversations that we can have about the guy. We have to move on.
Can I just ask you guys, like, after, you know, it's been such a tiring few weeks, anyone actually just looking forward to having an actual football match to talk about again?
Yeah,
I can't wait. Look, Bill, I hate the transfer.
It's been exhausting, man.
I hate all the other show that comes with football nowadays. Don't get me wrong. I know it's you know, an entertainment business now, and every aspect of the club is pulled apart. But to be honest with you, I just enjoy watching the football and speaking about the football. And I'm
so
glad
much noise.
we can put an end to this. And what better way than West Ham at the weekend, eh?
Yeah.
You know, bitter rivals.
I watched West Ham Fan TV last night, and they was talking about Kudus. They went, that stadium better get all them little stalls and everything out and put pins all around the side so Kudus can't do his celebration. I was like, yes.
No, I mean, even the transfer window was sickening enough, Billy. You know, it's Dave and I are big fans of that. And then this happening too. You're just like, can we please get back to some sense of normalcy? I completely agree. Please, everybody, there's so many people watching us on Twitter via Billy. If you didn't know about his Twitter already, please do follow him. He's absolute crack and is also our pretty much main source of humor when we do our Twitter reacts. He's a guy that we constantly have featured on there. And also as well, if you're on TikTok, please follow him over there. He's making very funny videos there too. Billy, appreciate you. Martin, appreciate you guys as well.
Thank you.
Thanks for coming on tonight.
Nice to meet you, Martin, as well.
Yes, love to meet Bill. I'll get you about them balloons, all right? Don't worry, mate.
Don't let them pop in the post. I think we'll leave it there, though. I have to rush off as well. And thank you, guys. Appreciate all the support. If you're watching this back, do smash the like button. And thank you to the generous donations from Curon, from Ed Case, and from Dermatron as well. And thanks to everybody that's been watching along with us. We do appreciate it. And we'll see you all this weekend. Come on, you Spurs. Bubble popping time this weekend.
Let's go.